Colombia a la carta.
We are very unusual for an American distillery in that we mainly focus on unusual grains and smoked grains and other unusual preparations. So almost every American whiskey is going to be a corn-based whiskey with a little bit of rye and barley, or a little bit of wheat and barley. We focus very heavily on barley itself, smoked, and then also prepared versions of typical distiller's grain.
We hammer the bungs of our barrels in by hand. We lug the barrels around. It's very, very small batch, very, very hands-on, and we only make about 10,000 cases a year, a case being 750 ml bottles. So we are a pretty hands-on. It's also an older style of making whiskeys, would be kind of by hand. This particular whiskey is a limited edition of our best-selling and most popular whiskey, which is Triple Smoke. Triple Smoke is made with peat, cherrywood, and beechwood smoked malted barley, so it's all malted barley, and aged in new barrels like an American whiskey, as opposed to used barrels like a Scotch, despite the peat smoked malted barley. And this won us Artisan Whiskey of the Year from Whiskey Advocate magazine for 2013. This particular bottle is at barrel strength at 135.4 proof, up from the standard 80 proof that it normally is.
Rye-mageddon is an unusual rye whiskey. Rye whiskey is usually plain field rye with a bit of corn, a bit of barley. This is malted rye, so it's actually been sprouted like barley is for distilling. So there are enzymes in it, and it changes the flavor. Then a portion of the malted rye has also been roasted like a coffee, which turns it black, and it adds a lot of coffee and chocolate notes to the whiskey. And then the rest is malted barley. So there's no corn, so it's not as sweet as a typical rye. And then the chocolate notes make it kind of richer and deeper. More than that, we age in smaller barrels. This was aged in a 15-gallon barrel, so it ages more quickly, so it gets a little bit less wood sugar from the process than using a full-size barrel, which also means it's a little bit sweeter, or a little bit drier.
This is our quinoa whiskey. And by our quinoa whiskey, I mean, to my knowledge, the only quinoa whiskey in the world. If you are familiar with quinoa, it actually tastes like quinoa. If not, I've had some people tell me that it tastes kind of like if a nut brown ale were a whiskey. And we try to be innovative and a little bit different, and these two, I think, best exemplify kind of what we're all about.
We also like to fool around with our other products. This right here is a barrel-aged gin. We make an American-style gin, which means it's more floral, more fruity, and less peppery than a British-style gin. And it's one of our more popular spirits. One day I was looking at some of our gin and wondered what would happen if I stuck it in one of our spiced rum barrels. We make spiced rum, we age the rum in new oak barrels, and then we spice or add the herbs and spices to that barrel. So you've got a barrel that has a lot of flavor in it. Once we've got rid of the rum, we put the gin. The barrel-aged gin has taken on the color of the barrel, even though the barrel's been used once. The gin was clear, it went in the barrel for about 6 months. It's taken on color just like whiskey does. Whiskey starts clear, gin starts clear. The barrel-aged gin picks up a lot of the flavors of the spiced rum. So you get oak, you get rum, you get spices, and then you still have the gin flavor. So it's a very unusual, differently flavored spirit.
Corsair, you have a Corsair and a privateer, both of which were pirates licensed by the French and British government respectively. So they were doing something normally illegal, piracy, but giving a large cut of what they stole to their respective governments. Gentlemen pirates. What we're doing, making booze, would normally be very, very illegal, but we're giving, I'll say, more than our fair share of tax money to the federal government, so it's legal, and it's just a gentleman pirate connection, and Corsair has a little bit better ring to it than privateer. And as far as our logo, this, well, it's our target market going out to have a good time. It's you. It's actually also up to interpretation as well. It was kind of designed to look like about a half a dozen different comic books and or movies, so it's also a personality test to see what it reminds people of as well. And I would like to invite anybody that wants to try anything different, anything unusual, to try our whiskeys. You most definitely have not had anything like them ever before. Our website is www.corsairartisan.com.